Perhaps you are wondering, what is a maquiladora? And what does this have to do with feminism? To understand this, let's take a step back.
The U.S. government introduced the Bracero program in 1942 to address the labor shortages caused by World War II in both USA and Mexico. Roughly 4.5 million Mexican workers were given jobs of cheap labor in the United States. The program came to a sudden end in 1964, which severely disturbed the Mexican economy by the mass deportation of workers. Mexico implemented manufacturing plants known as maquiladoras in the rural areas of Mexico near the U.S. border, which were built as an emergency protocol for the economy to recover quickly. Today, maquiladoras are heavily relied upon for manufacturing and exporting goods at a duty-free rate. The Mexican sector of maquiladoras are also dominated by U.S. corporations which own at least 90% of the factories. As inflation continued to rise, women joined maquiladoras for extra income to better provide for their families. Families with multiple children work to their full potential to support the education and future of their children.
Because of a combination of Mexican cultural views undermining women and a sudden influx of employees, this created many unfair practices that still exist today in the culture of maquiladoras. Some common unfair practices that continue the oppression of women include lower wages compared to men, unsafe working conditions, sexist hiring practices, sexual harassment, and even murder.
For example, female applicants are subject to mandatory urine testing, invasive questions about their birth control use, menstrual schedules, or sexual habits in order to screen out pregnant women and deny them jobs. This is because many companies don't want to have to pay for maternity leave, making it more likely to turn away these applicants that select yes to pregnancy. According to the Borgen Project, in November 2022, the wage gap between men and women in Mexico was 15.6%. This means that on average, Mexican women earn 85 pesos for every 100 pesos earned by men for similar work. Maquiladoras pay the lowest average wages for unskilled female labor. Young women in maquiladoras, usually between 16 and 25 years old, earn a little bit more than 50 Mexican cents in an hour, not including benefits.
It is not uncommon for male supervisors to display inappropriate actions towards female workers. This power dynamic shows how women feel less able to remove themselves from uncomfortable situations. Women are even told to wear makeup and revealing clothing and are sometimes propositioned in the application process. There are even reports that lighter work clothes have been offered by managers in exchange for sexual acts and dates. All of these behaviors has been normalized in maquiladoras, which only recently has sparked outrage throughout the Mexican community. Several murder stories have been documented about women who arrived late to work and for that reason were killed, never to return home again. One specific case includes Claudia Gonzalez, for when she arrived a couple minutes late to her job in Ciudad Juarez, a border town near El Paso, Texas. She was found about a month later in a shallow grave with 7 other women, all strangled to death. This even more stresses the physical impact of the oppression on the female workers.
Finally, families in Mexico typically consist of multiple children. When families can only afford to educate a limited number of children, it is usually boys and adolescent men that are given priority, while women and girls are forced to enter the workforce. As a result, women and girls have a disadvantaged ability to access positions that advance their career in topics such as higher wages and safer working conditions because of their lack of education. This is one of the reasons why many of the supervisors are men rather than women.
All of these reasons combined contributed to the start of the feminism movement to end the oppression of female workers at maquiladoras. According to Dorothy Q. Thomas, director of the Human Rights Watch Women's Rights Project, the Mexican government should not tolerate maquiladora development at the expense of women's human rights. Sex discrimination is prohibited by Mexican and international human rights law. We are troubled that U.S. and other corporations openly practice sex discrimination and that the Mexican government allows this discrimination to flourish unchecked.
So what have they been doing to make their voices heard? Groups such as the Maquiladora Solidarity Network, La Mujer Obrera, and Fuerza Unida have been formed by advocates for the sole purpose of empowering women workers against their oppression in maquiladoras and to bring light to the current situation that they are having to endure.
On January 12, 2019, 25,000 to 70,000 maquiladora workers in Matamoros, Mexico went on strike. This event sparked global awareness throughout the world for women's rights and became known as the Matamoros Strike. The strikers demanded a 20% increase of wages and bonuses due to the low wages relative to cost of living and quality of life costs. These strikers' demands were met by dozens of companies, which was a big win for the women's rights movement. This event also created unity throughout the workers, further strengthening the advocacy.
Key people like Patricia Mercado, a passionate feminist politician in Mexico, continue to fight to this day for equal wages for women in maquiladoras and awareness and change towards the sexual oppressions towards them. Another key person is an author named Alice Shylander who advocates for women's rights in a different way. She has written a research paper called Violence and Exploitation of Women Working in Maquiladoras, which brings light to how the United States corporations have been oppressing women for their own economic gain, no matter the cost of their quality of life. By writing this, she is spreading awareness to the entire world, causing a great uproar in the movement itself.
Let's now explore the current situation of maquiladoras. The past situation has left a heavy imprint in that men still dominate maquiladora ownership and wealth acquired from years of higher wages. Today, oppression towards women in maquiladoras still happens, but with increased awareness and protests by various feminist groups, the severity of oppression has reduced, and the murder and abuse amount has gone down 65% according to an investigation in November 2023. Gender discrimination is also still a big problem, and it is hard to say if it will ever be solved considering the cultural backgrounds of it, but global awareness has definitely been a key part in creating more equality throughout men and women in maquiladoras. Despite all of these challenges, it is definite to say that the future for female workers in the feminist movements are bright.
So, how can you make a difference? One of the best ways to encourage equality for women in maquiladoras is by spreading this issue throughout your friends and family and overall making the world more globally aware. Another great way to support the movement is by donating money and volunteering with non-profit organizations such as the Maquiladora Solidarity Network, La Fuerza Unida, and more. One last way that you can help create change is by contacting companies that economically profit off of maquiladora usage and urge them to improve quality and well-being for female workers to free them from abuse and discrimination. And finally, remember that small actions from everyone together combines and adds up into change and equality in support of the feminist movement, directly helping the lives of female workers.